Hello there, I'm Muhammad Ahmad Hamdan and you're watching Nightline, news making the headlines. Budget 2024 clears policy stage in Parliament. Also, Bank Negara maintains OPR at 3%. Good morning. We begin with this headlining story. The Dewan Rakyat on Thursday passed the Supply Bill 2024 at the policy stage with a majority voice vote. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, during his winding-up speech on the bill, said the government's responsibility in reducing the fiscal deficit does not mean neglecting efforts to improve the well-being of the people and economic development. Instead, the reduction will be implemented gradually.
Dan beberapa langkah diambil, termasuklah belanjawan itu lebih berhemat, ya. Dan saya minta juga Tan Sri Ketua Subsidy Negara mengambil langkah meminta jabatan-jabatan memastikan belanjawan itu lebih teratur dan berhemah. Dan keduanya ialah langkah subsidi atau penyasaran subsidi yang kita umumkan, ya. Dan umpamanya, ya, beberapa langkah dalam belanjawan ini termasuk cukai keuntungan modal dan cukai barang bernilai tinggi. Itu akan menambah pendapatan kepada kerajaan dianggarkan 4 bilion ringgit. Ya, jadi pencapaian fiskal itu saya jangka dapat dilaksanakan.
Anwar also said with the passing of the Fiscal Responsibility Act last month, as the Finance Minister, he is now accountable to Parliament for hitting the fiscal targets. The voice vote was later called for by Dewan Rakyat Speaker Tan Sri Johari Abdul after Anwar wrapped up the 2024 budget debate for the Finance Ministry. On October 13 of 393.8 billion ringgit, the highest in the country's history. The bill will now proceed to its second reading to be debated at the committee level, scheduled for 12 days starting Monday, before being presented in Dewan Negara. Bank Negara has maintained the OPR unchanged at 3% on its last Monetary Policy Committee meeting for the year. In a statement, the central bank noted that the global economy continues to expand, driven by domestic demand amid strong labour market conditions. At the current OPR level, the monetary policy stance remains supportive of the economy and is consistent with the current assessment of the inflation and growth prospects. Meanwhile, the expectations of a higher for longer interest rate environment in the US and increased concerns over the escalation of geopolitical tensions have contributed to a persistently strong US dollar. This has affected other major and emerging market currencies, including the ringgit. Nevertheless, these developments are not expected to derail Malaysia's growth prospects, as Bank Negara said it will continue to manage risks of heightened volatility, including liquidity, to ensure the orderly functioning of the domestic foreign exchange market. Now, economist Liu Chi-yong meanwhile expresses concerns on the potential risks of external factors that might influence a country's growth trajectory, particularly highlighting the impact of geopolitical risks on inflation and growth dynamics.
The most important one currently will be the risk of the Middle East crisis being escalated to a wider regional conflict. So if this happens, there is a high probability that there could be a squeeze on the supply of the global oil. And this can actually push the global oil prices up and cause inflation worldwide. And if inflation is increased because of this, then this will pose a problem for the central bank, because if inflation goes up, they have to raise the interest rate, because interest rate basically is used for inflation targeting. But if, let's say, the inflation is actually caused by supply squeeze or supply disturbances, let's say you have an oil crisis in the Middle East because of a wider regional conflict, then it is a critical issue where the central bank has to think of other ways to actually control inflation rather than just through monetary policy.
Moving on, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on Thursday received a courtesy call from China's State Councillor and Public Security Minister Wang Xiaohong, who is on a 3-day working visit to Malaysia. Wang arrived at Perdana Putra at 3:10 p.m. before both leaders proceeded to a meeting which lasted about an hour. Anwar said the meeting helped to strengthen the relationship between both countries in facing security challenges in Asia and the world in general. This year also marks the 10th anniversary of the Malaysia-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, and both countries will also celebrate the 50th anniversary of their diplomatic relations in 2024. At the meeting, Anwar also extended an invitation to China's President Xi Jinping to visit Malaysia next year. The meeting was also attended by Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail and China's ambassador to Malaysia, Ouyang Yujing. Wang and his delegation are also scheduled to hold bilateral meetings with Saifuddin and visit Malacca during their time in Malaysia. The Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Ministry will immediately implement 3 steps to monitor chicken prices following the discontinuation of subsidies and price controls, which took effect on Wednesday. Acting Minister Dato' Armizan Muhammad Ali said the first step involves the continuation of monitoring and enforcement through the Price Control and Anti-Profiteering Act of 2011 and, if necessary, the Competition Act of 2010. At a media conference, Armizan said the second step is to introduce targeted mitigation according to specific areas that are facing issues. In addition, he said the ministry will persist with intervention programs, particularly in Sabah, Sarawak, Labuan and the Peninsula, where chicken prices have exceeded RM9.40 per kilogram.
Ini 3 pendekatan yang akan kita laksanakan serta-merta kerana kita melihat bahawa sebagaimana saya sebut, overall below RM9.40. Ada kawasan tertentu yang tinggi, khususnya di kawasan pasar yang premis-premis yang menawarkan pasar basah-basah.
As for the intervention programs, he said Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim had ordered more Rahmah sales and Madani agro sales to be held. And that's to ensure that the people have access to chicken supplies at a reasonable price. Now, there are no plans to increase the current monthly 60,000 tonnes of subsidised packet cooking oil in the market. Deputy Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Fuzia Salis said the government is now focusing on targeted subsidies, and if it is able to implement it fully, there is no need for the additional 10,000 tonnes of subsidised cooking oil.
Datuk Yang Dipertua, seperti mana diketahui, cadangan penambahan kuota akan menyebabkan peningkatan kos ke atas pelaksanaan mentah ataupun CPO.
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Menteri.
The Deputy Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister said this when replying to a question raised by Rasah MP Cha Ki Chin in the Dewan Rakyat on Thursday. At present, Fuzia said the e-cost system only tracks subsidised cooking oil transactions involving manufacturers, repackaging companies, wholesalers and retailers. Customers who are affected by the sudden suspension of MYAirline's operations can request for a refund through the chargeback process if their travel dates have passed. Transport Minister Anthony Loke Siu Fook also said the Malaysian Aviation Commission, MAVCOM, has engaged Bank Negara Malaysia regarding the refunds to affected travellers.
MAVCOM juga telah mengadakan perbincangan bersama pihak Bank Negara Malaysia berkenaan isu pembayaran balik kepada pelanggan yang terjejas dalam hal ini. Pihak Bank Negara telah mengesahkan bahawa bagi penumpang yang telah membeli tiket melalui kad kredit, kad debit ataupun direct debit, boleh menuntut pembayaran balik melalui proses chargeback sekiranya tarikh perjalanannya telah luput dengan menghubungi MYAirline ataupun menghubungi bank mereka sendiri.
Loke said this during his winding-up speech at policy stage debates for 2024 budget in Parliament on Thursday. Loke said the Transport Ministry and MAVCOM are closely monitoring the situation and it will ensure that all complaints and issues raised by affected travellers can be fully resolved. according to provisions under the Malaysian Aviation Consumer Protection Code 2016. The request for education autonomy in Sarawak will be brought before the Malaysia Agreement MA63 Implementation Action Council meeting, chaired by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim for approval. Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Sabah, Sarawak Affairs and Special Duties, Datuk Wilson Ugak Kumbong, stated that the issue of autonomy was discussed during the MA63 Technical Committee meeting held last March and chaired by Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof.
Satu, autonomi isu pendidikan. Yang kedua, autonomi kepada isu kesihatan. Dan yang ketiga adalah untuk penukaran status Pelabuhan Bintulu dari Pelabuhan Persatuan ke Pelabuhan Negeri Sarawak. Isu-isu tersebut telah pun dibentangkan oleh Kerajaan Negeri Sabah dan Negeri Sarawak.
He said this while replying to a question in the Dewan Rakyat from Igan Member of Parliament Ahmad Johnny Zawawi, who wanted to know about the matters in MA63 for Sarawak that had been finalised and other matters which had not been resolved. Commenting further, Wilson said among the demands that have been resolved is the recognition of the Public Works Department and the Irrigation and Drainage Department of Sabah and Sarawak as technical departments, as well as the handover of liquefied petroleum gas LPG regulatory powers to Sarawak. The Public Accounts Committee PAC revealed that the purchase of the 104 faulty ventilators was made during Datuk Seri Adham Babar's tenure as the Health Ministry. Its chairman, Datuk Mas Ermiati Samsudin, confirmed the matter during the committee's weekly press conference in the Parliament building on Thursday.
Memang semua dah sedia maklum yang ini di bawah sewaktu Menteri Dr. Adham Babar. So even YPKG pun dah bagi statement during his time.
On Monday, the PAC disclosed that no action could be taken regarding the defective ventilators supplied to the government due to the absence of a written agreement between the Health Ministry and Pharma Niaga Logistics Sdn Bhd PLSB. Mas Ermiati also said that the Health Ministry was given 2 months to respond to the 5 recommendations given by PAC on addressing the shortcomings found in the management of the COVID-19 outbreak. She added that after the PAC conducted a feedback procedure, the committee would present a follow-up action report on the matter, which will also contain the Health Ministry's feedback in Parliament. In Kelantan, 3 Bangladeshi workers were buried alive in a mishap at a construction site for a highway in Kampung Maka in Labok near Pulai Condong on Thursday. The incident was believed to have occurred at midday. Machang Police Chief Superintendent Muhammad Adli Mat Daud confirmed receiving a report on the incident. He said all the victims were aged in their 30s, adding that their bodies were sent to the Machang Hospital for post-mortem. The area has been cordoned off to facilitate probe. First, evacuees leave Gaza for Egypt. News from the foreign front when we return. Welcome back. Onto the foreign front. More foreign nationals and injured Palestinians have arrived in Egypt from Gaza, a day after the Rafah crossing opened to allow the first evacuation since Israel's siege of the enclave began nearly 4 weeks ago. At least 400 foreign nationals and 60 injured people are expected to leave the strip over the course of the day. The evacuations came as fighting intensified in Gaza after an airstrike destroyed clusters of houses in the Bureij refugee camp on Thursday, leaving at least 15 dead. It was earlier reported that explosions were also heard in the early hours of Thursday around the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City. So far, at least 9,061 Palestinians, including thousands of children, have since been killed in retaliatory strikes across the Gaza Strip. In other news, U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday has voiced support for a humanitarian pause to Israel's war in Gaza. Biden's remarks marked a shift in the position of the White House, which has previously said it would not dictate how Israel conducts its military operations. Biden, who has thrown his support behind Israel, has also shifted his response in recent weeks as the humanitarian situation worsens in Gaza and the civilian death toll rises. He now faces growing pressure from rights activists, fellow world leaders and even progressive members of his own Democratic Party to rein in Israel from its relentless attacks on Gaza. Japan on Thursday began releasing a third batch of treated wastewater from the stricken Fukushima nuclear plant, a process that has seen China and Russia ban seafood from the country in response. The Tokyo Electric Power TEPCO said it started releasing 7,800 tons of treated water in each of the first 2 batches and plans to release the same amount to the current batch through November 20th. The third batch began despite opposition from China and Russia, as the plant operator said it plans to pump about 460 tons of treated water per day, about 1 kilometer off the coast via an underwater tunnel. Japan began releasing treated radioactive wastewater from the plant this August, triggering a strong reaction from China and opposition parties in South Korea and the Solomon Islands. Storm Ciarán smashed into northwestern Europe on Thursday with strong winds and driving rain, killing 1 person in front and forcing the closure of schools, airports and rail and ferry services. A truck driver was killed by a falling tree northeast of Paris, and 1.2 million French households were left without electricity as winds which were hitting 207 kilometers per hour, leading to reports of 20-meter waves off the coast. Meanwhile, in Britain, the Channel Islands were among the worst-hit areas. Southern England was also badly affected, with many schools closed, and the rescue charity that saves lives at sea urging people to avoid the coast. Storm Ciarán was driven by a powerful jet stream that swept in from the Atlantic, unleashing heavy rain and furious winds that have already caused heavy flooding in Northern Ireland and parts of Britain. JDT qualify for 4th consecutive Malaysia Cup final. Sports after this breather. Sports football, the 2023 Malaysia Cup. Defending champions Johor Darul Takzim JDT moved into the finals after annihilating Perak 12-2 on aggregate in the two-legged semi-final of the competition. At the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium, the Southern Tigers turned up the heat in the second leg by thrashing Perak 8-1. Arif Aiman broke the deadlock by scoring their first goal in the 11th minute. A brace from Bergson da Silva, Eberty Fernandez and substitute striker Shafiq Ahmad. And a goal from Argentinian striker Fernando Forestieri helped JDT to seal a comfortable win and qualify for their fourth consecutive final. Perak managed to grab a goal just before the final whistle through Firdaus Ahmad Fuad. When Nightline returns, married couple arrested in connection with murder of senior citizen. In Terengganu, a married couple was remanded for a week starting Thursday in connection with the murder of a senior citizen in Kuala Berang, which occurred early Wednesday morning. The remand order was issued by Magistrate Nur Azurin Zainal Kefli at the Marang Magistrates Court to assist police investigations into the case under Section 302 of the Penal Code. The 35-year-old woman was arrested at her residence in Wakaf Tapai, Marang around 11 a.m. on the same day of the incident. Shortly after, her 37-year-old husband was also detained. It was reported that the 65-year-old victim's body was found with 15 stab wounds at 4:35 a.m. on Wednesday. Authorities said the victim, a government pensioner, was run over by a car before being stabbed by a woman believed to be her business partner, who works as a seamstress. It was also believed that the incident stemmed from a dispute over profit sharing between the two. The fertility rate in Malaysia has reached its lowest since 50 years in 2022, falling below the replacement level of 2.1 children per woman. But why is this happening? FMT's Danish Rajareza and Amira Huda have the report.
Ahmad Akram Zailan and his wife Sophia Rabwan always dreamed of having a big family like the ones they grew up in. Initially, the couple wanted 5 children.
Now, after a year, we feel that the demand of raising a child is huge and we can only afford to channel all our resources to our only son. Maybe we will revisit our decision if all the factors can be resolved.
Ahmad and Sophia are clearly not the only ones thinking twice about having more children because of the cost. Last year, the country recorded the lowest number of births in 50 years with 423,124 newborns. And the declining fertility rate is not an overnight phenomenon. It has been the case for years. Since 2013, the fertility rate has remained below the replacement level of 2.1 children. University Malaya Business and Economics Senior Lecturer Lai Xiao Li says the costs of raising children is a big factor behind the low fertility rates.
The fertility rate is inversely related to socio-economic development, including urbanization. With rising education and opportunities, the cost for women to have children is much higher, and many working women, without adequate support, choose to forego childbearing.
However, this is not the only reason for the decline. There is also the fact that people are getting married later in life and using contraceptives more often.
Modernization is definitely another factor contributing to low fertility due to the changing values and priorities.
Fertility specialist Aldrin Lai, meanwhile, says younger people just have different ideals than generations before them.
Younger generation nowadays are deferring childbirth, mainly because of empowerment of women in terms of education, as well as also women going into the workforce. Thus, they will have to decide whether career is more important versus childbirth.
So what can be done to increase the country's fertility rate?
The government can also offer tax incentives for women, especially those who are in the workforce. So this will probably again motivate them to have children when they are much younger.
The establishment of more childcare centers, along with subsidies for nursery fees, could also help. Economist Carmelo Ferlito is advocating for conducive work environments. He suggests the government to work with the Malaysian Employers Federation to establish flexible working arrangements and create a workplace that aligns with family commitments. Danish Rajareza and Amira Huda, FMT for Nightline.
From jumpsuits to a school yearbook, the life of American musician Elvis Presley has been transported to London for new exhibition Direct from Graceland Elvis. Let's take a look at items from his life in the British capital as we wrap up Nightline this time around. With that, I'm Muhammad Hamdan. Thanks for watching and stay safe, Malaysia.